Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sabrina Kofer, and on behalf of Choice and ACRL, I'd like to welcome you to today's program, Supporting the Whole Student, Leveraging Leisure Reading for Academic Success, which is sponsored by OverDrive Academic. Today's discussion is one in a series of sponsored webinars from Choice and ACRL that addresses new ideas and developments of interest to the academic library community. Before we get started, I'd like to point out a few features of the webinar software. All of the attendees who join the presentation are automatically muted and your cameras are off, so don't worry about generating any noise or feedback. We've got that taken care of for you. In the main area of the screen, you can follow along with the presentation materials. We are using the Q&A feature today. Please use it to ask questions of our speakers. We'll answer as many questions as we have time for at the end of the presentation, so please do type your questions into the Q&A module as they occur to you. Also note that there is closed captioning available for today's session. To toggle the automated captions on or off, please use the CC button on the bottom right corner of your screen. Last, please note that we are recording today's program and everyone who registered should receive a follow-up email with a link to the archive version. And with that, we are ready to get started, so I will hand it over to Tracy.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. I'm really happy to join you here today to talk about our presentation, Supporting the Whole Student, Leveraging Leisure Reading for Academic Success. So as I mentioned, my name is Tracy Egan. I'm an OverDrive account manager working with academic libraries in the United States. I'm really pleased to share with you an excellent panel and a very special guest who are joining me today. Passing first to Jessica and then Hugo and Clay for introductions.
Hi, my name is Jessica Rigg. I am the acquisitions librarian at Georgia Southern University. We use OverDrive as one of our partners to provide ebooks to our students, faculty, and staff. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Hi, I'm Hugo Bresson. I am part of the library marketing and digital sales team at Penguin Random House, and I am excited in a little bit to be joined by Clay McLeod Chapman for a conversation about his upcoming book, or recently published, I should say.
Thank you so much, and let's move on to our agenda for today. To start, I will share information about OverDrive, and Jessica will talk about Georgia Southern University. We'll then look at the growth of pleasure reading on college campuses, ways leisure reading can support academic success and career readiness, the importance of leisure reading for mental health and well-being, how books in a variety of formats support the whole student. Plus, as Hugo mentioned, we'll be passing off to Hugo with Penguin Random House. And an important thing I want to mention is PRH is on the forefront of leisure reading trends and insights into Millennial and Gen Z leisure reading habits. And he'll be talking, as he mentioned, with Clay. Next screen. Okay, I think you need to go back one. We're going to talk a little bit about OverDrive. OverDrive Academic is the critical resource for both curriculum and leisure reading for higher education. At OverDrive, we are dedicated to creating a world enlightened by reading by delivering the industry's largest catalog of ebooks, audiobooks, and other digital media to a growing network of 76,000 libraries, colleges, and corporations in 94 countries. We do this by hiring skilled in-house librarians to help curate and serve your students, faculty, and staff, helping users read more with Libby, our award-winning reading app, by offering a catalog of millions of titles in 100+ languages from 30,000+ publishers, including our good friends at Penguin Random House. We are proud to be a certified B Corp and joining a growing global movement of people using business as a force for good. OverDrive earned this certification for our commitment to social and environmental performance, transparency, and accountability. While we provide content for curriculum use in the classroom, today we will focus on the importance of leisure reading. Next slide.
My name is Jessica Rigg. I'm at Georgia Southern University, as I said earlier. Georgia Southern is a public R2 university in Southeast Georgia. We have 3 campuses. Our main campus is in Statesboro, Georgia, and then we have satellite campuses in Savannah and in Hinesville. We also have 2 libraries, one on the Statesboro campus where I work, which is our main campus, our main library, and then one on the Armstrong campus. We have about 27,000 students and 141 degree programs. So we have a wide range of patrons that we serve who are studying a wide range of topics. Our university's mission is to promote talent and economic development to enhance quality of life through scholarly pursuits, cultural enrichment, student life, and community engagement across all campuses by supporting the whole student. We in the library support the whole student in part by meeting their need for leisure reading with the help of OverDrive.
Thanks, Jessica. Students are reading more. The perception is often that college students don't have time to read beyond what's required, but the truth is college students are reading for pleasure. In fact, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Americans spent more time reading for leisure in 2020 than the previous year. Key groups that reported reading more include adult Gen Zers, that's age 20 to 24, younger millennials, age 25 to 34. This trend is driving an increase in binge reading, which is up 7% from 2017 to 2021. We've seen this firsthand. Circulation and OverDrive Academic ebook and audiobook collections jumped 9% in 2021, followed by a 17% year-to-date increase in 2022. What are they reading? Most popular titles across all of our academic libraries include fiction and nonfiction titles such as Barack Obama's The Promised Land, Atomic Habits by James Clear, The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, and the perennial favorite Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Like most, if not all of these titles are considered leisure titles, with bestsellers like Where the Crawdads Sing, The Midnight Library, and Becoming following close behind these top titles. And academic libraries are on trend in growing their collections. A 2022 ACRL survey of academic librarians found a more than 14% increase in those acquiring non-academic titles for their digital collection. I'd like to get some insight from Jessica on her school's digital collection. Jessica, can you tell a bit about GSU's focus on digital and why you wanted to build a digital library?
Sure. Well, like all university libraries, we have been transitioning more and more of our collection to be from print to online. Since we have 3 campuses and we serve a very mobile population of students and faculty and staff, electronic resources have proven to be the most effective way to get content into our patrons' hands. We want to meet their needs, our students' needs where they are, and most of the time where they are is on their phones or on their computer. When we first decided to investigate whether OverDrive would be a good fit for us and our needs, we were looking for basically just an electronic version of our popular reading collection, which proved to be very popular with our students. And we decided we needed a good way to combine popular reading with the ease of electronic access. So we tried OverDrive to see if it would work for us, and it has been a great success. So it's proven to be a hit, especially since the pandemic. It's really skyrocketed since then. So we've had a good experience because of that, because we've been moving more of our collection online.
Thank you. Jessica, are there any popular titles that you see across the board at your library?
I don't think anybody's ever going to stop reading Harry Potter. That's very popular. The How to Be Anti-Racist is also very popular. It was something that was promoted very heavily through our diversity and inclusion, which we'll talk about later too, promotion, but it's something that students just like to read over and over again. So we've had some very high use titles.
Thank you. We're going to talk about academic success and career readiness. Leisure reading has an important role at any age, but at the academic level, it's particularly helpful for academic success and even career readiness. Leisure reading, as we said, is just not fiction. It's nonfiction, self-improvement, and skills learning too. Penguin Random House Marketing Insights team provided some insightful consumer research that shows younger generations are continuing to turn to books as a key resource to learn a new skill or better prepare for their prospective futures. Skill building is a key area of interest for Gen Zers, with almost 3/4, that's 72%, of them identifying having taken a course outside of their schooling to learn a new skill. We witnessed this firsthand. Many in the top 25 most circulated titles across academic libraries on Libby support personal development, career readiness, and academic success. We're seeing titles like these make their way into the most popular lists across academic, which tells us that students are turning to leisure reading, not just for fiction escapes, but for learning soft and hard skills valuable for their academic careers, and in preparing them for post-university careers. We know from our professional business unit that these and similar titles are also very popular across corporations' libraries and are often the most highly requested titles by organizations to use in helping their workforce upskill. Offering these as a part of an academic leisure collection sets students up for success well beyond their time as your students. Companies are looking to hire people with hard skills and a desire for learning with skills in leadership and grit too. Jessica, can you share your insights about how the library has expanded its digital resources to serve a growing areas of study?
Sure. So the GS libraries have had a long history of providing e-journals, databases, and other online resources to support student learning and research. But with OverDrive, we've also been able to support other aspects of their life. As Tracy mentioned, we do have, we've seen a reflection of some of the same kind of titles with our own students. Popular titles on habit building, mindfulness, time management, and other self-help kind of titles can help students build the skills that they need to manage the stresses of adulthood. Even fiction titles can expose students to new ideas and open new avenues of inquiry for students that might lead to future scholarship. It's a great way to explore, to encourage their curiosity and creativity and explore topics that maybe they never thought of before. It could inspire interest in a new field of study or help students emphasize with people with whom they might not otherwise identify. So basically anything that gets you thinking will eventually lead to, a broader, more robust academic experience. At least that's what we found.
Thank you, that's really helpful. Let's talk about getting involved in campus and the role leisure reading has in getting students involved and active. Academic success goes beyond the classroom. Students are involved in campus life, whether it's through campus activities, clubs, peer-led programs. All of these develop crucial skills that help in their academic careers, but also in their professional life beyond. Leisure reading supports this via connecting students to their university via shared reading experiences and activities like All Campus Reads, which is one of my favorite things to promote, which can include book clubs, first-year experience, visiting speakers, titles, extracurricular student groups and activities like film, music, art, sci-fi, fantasy, poli-sci, also including popular titles such as manga, comics, horror, gaming, and fandom titles like the graphic novel series by Rachel Smythe, the massively popular manga series, The Seven Deadly Sins, and of course, Clay's titles, including his newest, Ghost Eaters. These examples allow students to connect with their peers, gain broader perspective on what's happening in our world, leading to discussion and growth. As we mentioned, titles can be fiction or nonfiction titles, and looking for other areas to explore more complex issues like diversity. Many academic libraries reach out to us to expand their diversity, equity, and inclusion collections. OverDrive supports these efforts by offering diversity audits. Diversity audits offer a snapshot analysis of your collection to help you ensure that your digital titles are reflecting and serving your diverse campus community. Jessica, I know that we've talked a lot about DEI and its importance at GSU. Can you talk a little bit about your collection in particular?
Sure. So we have a large and rapidly increasing number of titles in our diversity, equity, and inclusion collections, both print and online. One of our university's strategic pillars as of 2021, and it's part of our whole 5-year plan, is just inclusive excellence. And so the library supports this pillar primarily by curating 3 library collections. We have the Diversity and Inclusion Collection, the Diverse Perspectives Collection, and the Leadership and Inclusive Excellence Collection. So while students and faculty often recommend titles to be added to all of these collections, most of our recommendations, especially the recommendations for ebooks that we get from OverDrive, are actually submitted by our University Library Diversity Committee. This group was just formed to help support this pillar because, you know, inclusive excellence is something it's important to the entire university, and we feel like this is a great, neat way for the library to show that we can support them in these ways. And so we purchased DEI titles from OverDrive to support the University Community Reads Initiative, which is a kind of university-wide book club that was started to encourage conversations among students and other members of our university community about race, identity, inequity, and other issues that they face every day. And so, you know, these are initiatives that we're proud to be a part of, and OverDrive helps us get the items to people as they need them quickly and efficiently.
Thanks, Jessica. Happy to hear you're doing some all-campus reads and book clubs. Those are my favorite things to promote. And we can do that extremely well with Libby, our reading app. We've been talking a lot about student reading, but I also think it's important to talk about mental health and well-being and the role leisure reading plays with that. So we at OverDrive believe in supporting the whole student, and digital collections do this by putting the emphasis on leisure reading. From Penguin Random House, reading remains one of the biggest hobbies amongst members of the Gen Z and Millennial generations. In a 2022 Hobbies and Passion behavioral survey conducted by YPulse, both Gen Z and Millennials identified reading as one of their top 5 hobbies. Leisure reading is an important component of this. 44% of 18 to 24-year-old book buyers and readers reported reading more for leisure in 2021 than previous years. Jessica, can you talk a little bit about what the whole student means to you and to GSU?
So one of the library's missions is to support the whole student. While we do have Gen Z and young millennial students, a lot of our students don't fit the stereotype of the average college student who might be unmarried, childless, and between the ages of 18 and 24. Our students range in age and often have family responsibilities as well as full-time employment in some cases. Georgia Southern has been named one of the most military-friendly institutions in the state, and a good number of our students serve in the National Guard or even are active military. Our Hinesville campus in particular supports the Camp Stewart Army Base. Our students have very, very active lives. And while education is important to them, as it is to all of us, or we wouldn't be here today, it is only one part of their lives. They are Georgia Southern students, but they're also human beings. And in some cases, parents and or soldiers. Our job is to meet their actual needs and to provide them with the resources they want, not what we think that they should want or need. In some cases, this means providing leisure reading in languages other than English. In some cases, it means providing popular fiction titles to support their real interest or even their kids' interest, regardless of the perceived literary merit of those titles.
And what about leisure reading do you think is so important to supporting the whole student?
We want to give them a respite from the stresses of the real world. As I said, some of our students are more established, but for many of our students, they're still young. And for many of our students, the COVID-19 pandemic was the first major crisis they experienced. And being exposed to the uncertainty of the pandemic was especially scary for some people who were just beginning their adult lives. During 2020 and 2021, we noticed a marked increase in our OverDrive stats as students looked for a brief escape from reality so that they could recoup their emotional resources and recharge. We realized that we could best support students by providing them with resources they could use to care for their own mental health. Everyone needs a break and a chance to relax, and leisure reading provides that opportunity. Ultimately, our job is to nurture their curiosity and empathy and just to promote their well-being. One of our goals is, as the whole university, is to support the growth of compassionate students who will become compassionate leaders. And a large part of that is helping them learn how to take care of their own mental well-being through leisure reading and other things.
Thanks, Jessica. That's terrific to hear. We've been talking a lot about students, but certainly we want to talk a little bit about faculty and staff development. Another area to mention is the value of digital collections for faculty and staff professional development. We have been talking, as I said, about leisure reading for students, but using your digital collection to reach faculty and staff in terms of providing titles that they have of interest, fiction and nonfiction titles, but looking at your digital collection to support the whole campus in their well-being and professional development. We're going to talk a little bit about formats now and the importance of embracing a variety of formats. This is one of my favorite things to talk about, and that is audiobooks. Across the OverDrive network of libraries, audiobooks have seen an 18% annual growth since 2019. And that includes K through 12 schools, public libraries, and academic libraries. Folks are choosing audiobooks. The number of books individual users have checked out is also up, with an average of 10 audiobooks per user in the first 6 months of 2022. Of the top circulating titles across academic, 4 of them, including Atomic Habits, are in the audiobook format. So why do we think audiobooks are popular on campus? Commuting students are moving from one place to another, and the ability to listen as they move and drive is really important. A 2020 consumer survey from Audio Publishers Association showed that the car is the #1 place for listening to audiobooks. And that is just like me and just like us. College students are also multitasking. They're studying, they're walking to class, they're doing chores, and they're working out. And audiobooks provide terrific format for multitasking while they're doing other activities. I often talk with my academic library accounts about the value of audiobooks to support multiple learning styles. Some students are more successful with auditory learning and reading, such as those with dyslexia. Jessica mentioned students that have English as a second language. Audiobooks really support those students as well. Jessica, let's talk a little bit more about audiobooks and why you are finding them popular on your campus.
Okay. Well, one thing that I maybe should have mentioned earlier is that we actually consolidated, Georgia Southern consolidated with Armstrong State University, which was in Savannah, and is now our Armstrong campus in Savannah, in 2018. And we noticed a spike in the number of audiobooks that have been requested by students and faculty. The commute between the Statesboro and Armstrong campus is about an hour, and many staff and faculty and students take that commute at least once a week. So they're on the road a lot, as Tracy said. And audiobooks just make the trip more enjoyable. Plus, our students are just busy. Sometimes having the opportunity to listen to a book while their eyes might be focused on another task, which is part of the whole multitasking thing, it just allows them to enjoy a leisure title that they might not otherwise have been able to enjoy if they only had the option of a traditional print book. So sometimes this is the only way that they can really fit enjoying content into their daily lives.
Thanks, Jessica. And thank you so much for talking about, again, my favorite format, audiobooks. So moving towards the end of Jessica and my conversation here, I do want to thank her for sharing the importance of leisure reading at Georgia Southern University. Before I pass over to Hugo and Clay, let's overview some key takeaways from our presentation thus far. Leisure reading is growing in popularity among college students. We talked a lot about the benefits of leisure reading, and they go beyond just leisure and help support the whole student in many ways, including academic success and career readiness, getting students to be more active and connected through the library, each other, and on campus. Leisure reading titles support mental health and well-being, and they meet students where they are with the formats that they want. So now I'm going to happily pass over to Hugo for the next segment of this presentation.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be part of this session. Reading for pleasure is important at every stage of life, as we've been talking about, and we're seeing readers drawn more and more to genre reading in particular. Tracy shared earlier some of the genres and titles that we are seeing that are receiving particular attention from Gen Z and millennial readers. In particular, sci-fi and romance has just been off the charts. Fantasy, manga, and of course, we've seen a significant rise in horror. And it's not just us in the book world, it's also in movie and it's in film as well. Horror is where it's at. Horror's had a dedicated readership for a long time, but is drawing even more folks in. To that end, I am excited to introduce our guest author, Clay McLeod Chapman. Clay is the author of the novels Whisper Down the Lane, The Remaking, and Miss Corpus, as well as the Tribe middle grade series, Homeroom Headhunters, Camp Cannibal, and Academic Assassins. Clay has also written stories adapted for film and TV, and most recently, his haunting and very scary novel, Ghost Eaters, published just 2 weeks ago now, September 20th. So Clay, welcome to the virtual stage.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. This is wonderful.
We're so excited that you're able to join. And I'm actually going to pop in the chat for everybody a link to Ghost Eaters on OverDrive, so they have access. Congratulations. Only 2 weeks. It's wild. The buzz has been tremendous.
Oh my God. Your lips to 5,000 readers' ears, right?
It's been tremendous, and I know that Ghost Eaters has been making its way onto various Best of Horror 2022 roundups. We're just so excited that you're able to join.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I mean, I've been listening into this whole conversation, and it's really, I don't know, it's very illuminating to me. So I feel, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
Of course, and we both have copies. I have the
oh my gosh, there it is.
the advanced copy. So kind of getting into this, I know we've been talking about leisure reading, independent reading. It can open up new worlds. It helps build empathy, inspire creativity, encourage readers to think critically, and can be a huge support for those who are working through tough circumstances. I'm wondering, kind of to kick us off, if you can share how reading outside of the classroom helped you.
Oh, well, I mean, as an only child growing up, I was raised by my mother in a single parent family dynamic. She had to work to kind of make ends meet, and I had a lot of time on my hands. And she tried to push me away from the TV, and the best way to do that was to put a book in my hands. And it's amazing because I can remember very vividly my grandmother. She would always make a deal with me, and she would take me to our local library. I'm originally from Virginia, the Bon Air Public Library. And she would take me to the library, and she would say, you can pick out 2 books. And this is when I was young, very maybe 6, 7. And she would say, you pick out 1 book for you to read to yourself, and pick out another book for me to read to you. So I would always, for me, I would pick stuff out like The Far Side, or like the, North America's Greatest Monsters. And to her, I'd be like, I want you to read me Stephen King. And she'd be like, so
Prophetic.
yeah, there you go. I would always try to pick out the bigger books for her to read and the kind of thinner books for me to read. And she caught on at a certain point, but it got me reading. And it was, to open up a book and kind of dive into that world and know that I could kind of immerse myself into that world. It was informative to me because that was the foundation for my imagination, kind of creating mental movies, mental, imaginary worlds for me to kind of lose myself in for days.
For days. And interesting to hear that even in that early age, horror was starting to knock on the door.
Yes, I mean, I will admit I'm a fan, and I grew up during the kind of heyday, like the second or third heyday of Stephen King. And
there's been many.
It's kind of like the weather, like there's like a seasonal cycle of like when Stephen King hits. But I mean, that's the amazing thing about Stephen King. Like he is a gateway he's like a gateway drug to other authors, where I learned about H.P. Lovecraft or Edgar Allan Poe or Shirley Jackson. Like it's amazing how if you start with King, he leads you down the family tree to the formative authors of his, experience or his kind of literary upbringing. And that, I don't know, like it's always, I appreciate that. He kind of guides you
in.
Book.
I'm particularly stoked that you mentioned Edgar Allan Poe, for there's something that Edgar has in common with your latest book, Ghost Eaters, which is residency in Richmond, Virginia. And for those of you who didn't know that about Edgar Allan Poe, please know that. And exciting because there really is a rich history of horror in Richmond, Virginia, not just literary, but also real life history. So it is extensive. I just want to share a little bit about Ghost Eaters for those who haven't had a chance to read yet. I know you'll be picking it up. In Ghost Eaters, we follow Erin, who is working through grief and all of its many nuances and challenges. She's mourning the loss of her ex-boyfriend to an overdose, his name's Silas, whom she had a very complex and sometimes fraught relationship with. And her world is really kind of falling apart in this grief. And then a friend of hers tells her about a new drug called Ghost. And this new drug allows users to see the dead. And so Erin, who's grieving still and kind of wanting closure with Silas, and of course, this is my opinion as a reader, so it's kind of weird to say it to you, Clay. She agrees to go on a drug-enhanced seance, which really, that's just kind of the beginning, propels her and her friends on a just really haunted and horror-filled journey. And when reading, I really felt the push and pull of her story, her trying to come to terms with the love that she had for Silas, the boundaries that she needed to set with him and maybe still needs to set with him, the need and search for absolution with somebody that you've lost, which is a really heavy topic. And I was also really struck by some of the ways that horror, and by that I mean the way that you wrote this story. Some of the sentences really just kind of summed up that grief experience really well. Kind of just want to chat about that because that's a huge part of what's going on in Ghost Eaters.
No, that's amazing. Thank you. For me, like sorry, the phone's ringing. I definitely wanted to get to a point where, when you write about these things, like the kind of genesis point for the book came years ago, 10, 15 years ago. I lost a friend to addiction, and it was kind of an experience that had kind of nestled its way into kind of my subconscious, and just like living in a place where like I never kind of forgave myself for not being there. And there's always that kind of moment, that kind of question of like, had I done this, or if I only did this. And we kind of live in those spaces. And as a writer, I wanted to kind of explore the notion of like, it's a very simple question. I ask myself, like, what is it to feel haunted? Like, what is it like to be haunted? You know, we talk about haunted houses, haunted dolls, haunted cars, you know,
Haunted dolls.
there's so many haunted things out there. But like the notion of us, of a person being a haunted house, or that like a ghost could potentially kind of linger or reside within our kind of own selves or our hearts. And it's, you know, I feel like when we think of, you know, to kind of fast forward a little bit, when I think of like spiritualism, or this notion of like, you know, during the Civil War, people had been kind of promised for years the good death, that you could kind of die at home with your family surrounding you and loved ones being there, and they could send you off into, you know, the hereafter. But the Civil War kind of changed all that, and, you know, people were now dying miles and miles away from home. But along comes, you know, psychics or spiritualists, or people who could proclaim to kind of connect to the other world, and all they had to do was kind of close their eyes and kind of, you know, sit in the circle and hold hands and kind of reach out to the great beyond. And, you know, for me, thinking of like, if someone were to say, hey, I have the potential to reach out to your friend, to reach out to a loved one, to reach out to someone that you've lost, like in my mind, I'm asking myself, would I do that? Would I cross that line? And, you know, in perfect kind of horror film, horror novel parlance, you're never supposed to do that. You're seeing, you know, the answer should be no, don't. But we're only human and we're fallible. And, you know, it's kind of a hard line to say no to, right?
It is. And I have to say, one of the things that I really appreciated as a reader, and as we know, for Gen Z and millennials, and, you know, I know there's a lot of heavy things that we're going to talk about amongst the conversation about ghost eaters, which is actually one of the questions I have for you later on. But the reality is, a lot of Gen Z and millennial readers have encountered and lost family, loved ones, friends to addiction, to overdose, and to the opioid crisis. Like, you know, we can kind of just call that what it is. My life too has been touched, and as a reader, I really felt the conversation that Erin was having through these experiences with Silas, and also the conversation she was having with herself, really, at so many points. And, you know, with her mom in her head, you know, the conversation of the person who really cares for you, and the voice that is in your head as you're traversing these kind of horrific scenes that you are kind of facing alone, even when you're in a room full of people, which is incredibly striking as you're reading all of the moments, especially. And I know there's going to be a little bit of spoilers in here, and I'm sorry, y'all. It is worth the read for a variety of reasons. But as you're traveling with her, I'm thinking especially when she shows up at the agency for her day of work, and it's rough. You know, she is haunted as everyone's speaking to her, you know.
Yeah. No, it's funny because when I originally pitched the book to my publisher, I said, this is kind of like Train Spotting meets Poltergeist. And I think
I kind of get that.
In the writing of it kind of became, it's Euphoria meets Poltergeist. But you know, like, it's interesting to say to yourself, like, you know, if there was a drug, like imagine a miracle drug that you pop a pill and you can see the dead, you can see ghosts, and just that sheer notion of like, well, I want to reach out and touch someone. I want to connect with my grandfather, my wife, my son, you know, whoever it may be. I think the kind of the fatal flaw of this concept, which is what makes the book so much fun and scary, is that you may want to talk to one specific ghost, but there are, like, think of history, think of, like, you know, think of how, you know, like the house I'm in right now, who's passed away in this place. I have no idea, but like the best way to find out is to pop a ghost, and all of a sudden it suddenly becomes the kind of like history is now in my face. And like for me, what I wanted to do is explore that notion of the things we choose to look away from and the things that we wish to kind of disregard. But you know, this kind of pill essentially kind of erases that boundary of like, no, I don't want to look over there. No, I don't want to see something that makes me feel uncomfortable. You know, the trauma of our country, the kind of, you know, maybe the specific kind of trauma of the South itself, where the book is, you know, takes place.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of look at those things in a way that, you know, entertaining is not the right word, but in a way that's unflinching and scary. You know, like I wanted to kind of, you know, we can no longer look away from the things that we choose not to engage with or choose not to see.
And effectively, you did so effectively. Yeah, and I that's really interesting, because as we're talking about this, what's coming to me is kind of a realization that Ghost Eaters is not only, yes, horror as a category for sure, but I think also very much a coming of age story, because what you're talking about, the not what we typically choose to look away from in the book, and for those, you all will meet Erin, and you also kind of get to meet her mom, who not only do you get to interact with kind of directly in some scenes, but also she is very much in Erin's head as the voice of look away. Don't, well, hey, just don't think about it. And it's a little bit calming, it's a little bit soothing, but also it's not always possible, and also kind of mirrors, you know, of course, you know, they go and shout out to anybody who's from Richmond who's listening in on this, because you'll know what we're talking about. Midlothian, a suburb, lots of suburbs in Midlothian, and that's where her parents are, and very much like, hey, this is the voice of the safe kind of suburban life that you grew up with. Don't look at this, but you are also totally experiencing something as an adult that you maybe weren't prepared for.
Yeah, it's, you know, the book, the main group of friends, the kind of circle of friends that the book orbits, they're all in their early to mid 20s. They've just graduated, you know, within the last year or so from college. So in my mind, it's, you know, it's kind of taking a page out of books like The Secret History, where, you know, who were those group of friends in college who thought they were going to take over the world, and now they've graduated, and suddenly the kind of like sobering notion of what real life is waiting for them kind of outside of their academic bubbles. That's the real horror story. I think, you know, like when you're in your 20s, like the world is your oyster, and then all of a sudden you graduate and it's like, okay, now I need to get a job, now I need to kind of like engage with the world at large, and it can be terrifying before the ghosts come into the picture.
Right. And I'm going to encounter loss of a loved one in a way that I've not been able to fathom before.
Yeah.
And which, you know, I know there's a lot of heavy stuff in this, and there's also there's a lot of humor too. There's also a lot of music shout outs, which I always enjoy as a reader. I want to get back to the history part of it. So I am from Richmond. I'm actually formerly a National Park Service ranger at the historic sites, some of which you mentioned. So this was particularly fun for me. Richmond holds a lot of dark history, an incredible amount. It's, you know, over just centuries of really tough history. And you incorporate so much Richmond history into Ghost Eaters. And I know that in your previous novels as well, the remaking and Whisper Down the Lane, they were also set in Virginia. I'm wondering if you can speak more to how history, maybe even Virginia history in particular, plays a part of your writing process and inspiration, how you research, what sites you choose, what layers.
It's a good question. I mean, it's funny because like I was born in the Blue Ridge, raised in Richmond. I haven't technically lived in Richmond or in Virginia at large for probably over 20 years now. But like, you know, I'm here in New York. It's theoretically home, though I don't think I can legally claim to be a New Yorker. I think it's like 3 generations in, then I'm,
Yeah.
but but it's so funny, like, because when I close my eyes, like my narrative default will always be Virginia, and that's just because that's where I was raised, and where that is the kind of region that feels very specific and kind of personal to me. And it's funny because in the remaking and Whispered Down the Lane, they were completely fabricated towns. Like, they were not. I made up Greenfield, Virginia, or like Pilots Creek, Virginia, and like places that don't exist. But Ghost Eaters was the first time I was like, no, I'm gonna set this in Richmond, to the extent where I have been frankly terrified of what my fellow Richmonders might think, that like you got this address wrong, or that didn't happen on that street corner. I fear my Richmond bona fides will be revoked pretty soon. But that all said, I mean, to answer your question, I feel as if Richmond can kind of, a lot of it was kind of being very specific and researching the history of particular kind of corners of the city and its kind of outer boroughs, like Hopewell, Virginia. But also, I feel like, to whatever degree, and I don't know if this registers, but like Richmond is kind of speaking for the country at large. The details are very specific and the history is very specific, but in its own way, it could have been Alaska, it could have been New Orleans, it could have been, like, our nation is kind of built on the blood and bodies and bones of many, many cultures, many, many people, many, societies that, like, time and history have kind of erased or kind of worn down to, headstones, basically. And I thought, like, it would be very interesting to try to write a ghost story about our nation at large, but do it through the lens of Richmond, which has its own very specific haunted history. But it speak to that larger point of, this country was founded on the bones and backs of many, many people. And yeah. So Virginia was kind of the taking that grander theme and kind of focusing that aperture, tightening that aperture down to this one particular region and this one particular city and this one particular state, but that it resonates kind of throughout the country.
Agreed. I mean, whether it's really all of the nameless and headstoneless souls that froze to death on Belle Isle, whether it is the many souls that burned in the burning of Richmond in the Civil War, or whether it's the Monacan tribe members whose lands many Richmond suburbs stand on today. There's a lot of Richmond history in there, and truly, as you said, can be expanded and applied to much of the South in particular. We really can't ignore the uniquely Southern part of this. And to that end, I was struck by the conversation about the monuments. So for many of you know, I mean, if you were reading the news over the last several years, you've heard conversations about national monuments. It was interesting in the book. There, and Richmond has been a central part of this. The shout out to the Arthur Ashe Monument, which is Monument Avenue, a lot of Richmond stuff, sorry. But it is truly indicative of conversations that are happening across the country, in particular the South. And to that end, one of the questions I wanted to ask you about, and I know we're coming up on time, but horror is a genre that can do a lot of different things. And one of the things that it does really well, frankly, better than any other genre. Yes, I'm laying it down here, folks, saying we're making a superlative statement here. Horror does this better than any other genre, which is reflecting what's going on around us and amplifying specifically the things that make us uncomfortable. I was wondering if you could kind of just talk a little bit about that and what horror is meant to you in that way.
Oh, Lord, I love that question because it makes me think immediately of George Romero and Night of the Living Dead. I think that like the power of horror is the power of metaphor. That we can kind of take our real world monsters and put them, either put the mask on or put them in the kind of the costume of metaphor, where we can kind of look at societal ills or the kind of the kind of whatever the nexus point of now is, and use these kind of durable monsters as means in which to kind of explore the emotional content of that. Zombies, what's amazing about the zombie motif is that every generation that metaphor kind of evolves and changes into whatever that generation needs the metaphor to be. The same with vampires, the same with werewolves, the same with, Frankenstein. Like it's astounding how we've created these very sustainable, very like mythic, kind of Joseph Campbell like, these are very durable metaphors, but it's how authors or filmmakers or artists kind of utilize those metaphors to kind of root them in the now. Like how does a vampire story speak to the time we're in right now? Today is the release day for Rachel Harrison's book, Such Sharp Teeth.
Yes.
And it's a werewolf novel. And on its surface, like it's a fun, pithy werewolf novel, but but it speaks to now, much the same way. Like I think Ghost Eaters is using the notion of like ghosts and like haunting and like what is it like when you're the ghosts that haunt us we can't avoid them anymore. Like the kind of the sins of the past are kind of coming back to to haunt us. So yeah, I mean, I think only horror can do that, because it's kind of grounding these big world fears and anxieties in something that feels unreal, but at the same time, I don't know, we just gravitate towards it.
Unreal, and also, wait a second, this is way too real. Clay, it has been a joy to talk to you. Thanks for joining us, and thanks, of course, to OverDrive for hosting. And we are just so excited for Ghost Eaters. Shout out to Quirk Books, which we have not mentioned yet, the publisher for Clay and Ghost Eaters. And Clay, we just wish you the best, and are so excited to see all of the great buzz.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Clay. And Tracy, we're going to turn it back to you and Sabrina. And I think, yep, back to the slides.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hugo and Clay. We have some time for some questions, so I'll just get started and jump right into it. Let's see. We have a question here from Emily, who asks, and I think this is for Jessica, who asks, what are some of the strategies you take to reach specific groups slash interests and let them know the library can support? I really love the idea to expand the leisure collection.
Well, we have two new outreach librarians who are very, very active. We have one on the Lane campus and one on the Statesboro campus, and they've been very proactive of going out to student groups, various groups that we have on campus, especially our Black Honor Society group that we have, and some other groups that are we have on campus that they have, very specific missions, or they have things that they want to accomplish on this campus, and they just go out there and let them know, here are some tools that you can use to accomplish those goals, and same thing with, like, we have gaming, we have all these different things that people can use to kind of make the library the heart of the campus. And so we have people who come in to the library just for regular things. And we have lots and lots of signage to let them know that these things are available. We try to make it very prominent in any of our bibliographic instruction that if you want anything, please let us know. One benefit that we do have for OverDrive is that a lot of our students actually kind of grew up with OverDrive. They had it in their K through 12 libraries, and they also had it at the public library. So they're already on Libby. They just want to know what we can do to help them. So we've kind of had it in that way. So yeah, it's a lot of outreach. It's a lot of trying to meet people where they are, but we've been really lucky that they've come to us as well. So, and so other than our outreach from the librarians, we haven't had to do much. They came to us.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. Okay, we have another question here that I think Jessica and maybe Tracy can also add some thoughts here from Elizabeth, who asks, I'm curious what we know about students accessing digital materials in different formats. Are they willing to read an ebook via web browser, or do they expect to be able to use an e-reader?
Well, I can certainly talk a little bit about how they can access digital content with OverDrive, and the answer is all of the above. So students, if you have an OverDrive collection, students can access those titles using most e-readers. They can access through the web browser, and they can access on any smart device. And the beauty of all of that is it's connected. So I can start reading a title at my desk, at my office, using my web browser, and I can, switch over to my phone while I'm waiting in queue to pick up my dinner, and it will know where I stopped on the web browser. So there's a lot of choices with OverDrive and Libby.
I will say that one thing that we've ran into a lot with our students is they will do everything they can not to have to download another reader. So if any, like, we do have all these options, but they love anything that they can play on just a regular browser.
Interesting. Okay, that's helpful. Okay, I think we have time for maybe one more. And there's a question here from Andrea. How do all campus read with OverDrive Academic? Do you have to purchase as many digital copies as students, faculty, staff who participate? Maybe Tracy, you can take this one.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on this one. Of course, if you're using physical books, you do need to have a copy for every student or every person on campus if it's an all-campus read. With digital, there's different licensing models for titles that are established by publisher. So there's a lot of different options in terms of what's available and what would be needed in terms of purchasing and content and quantity. So the key with anything, if you are already an OverDrive account, is to reach out to your account manager, me, and talk with me about titles that you're interested in, and we can set you up with the best options for you.
And I'll add that one thing that we really like about OverDrive is that you can place holds on things. So if somebody else has a book, you can place a hold and you can see where you are in the queue. So for us, it's not really affordable to have every single 20,000 students are going to read this book. We have to have 20,000 copies. So we usually start off at about 5, and then we go as we see our turnaways. So we monitor it, especially if we know there's going to be high demand for something. But yeah, if it's something like a community reads or for a class, we usually start with 5 and we'll add up. So or 5 users.
Oh, that's great. Super helpful. Okay, thanks everyone. I think we're about at the end here, so I'll just wrap things up briefly. So thank you so much to Tracy, Jessica, Hugo, and Clay for taking the time to speak with us today. And thank you to our attendees for your questions and comments. I'd like to remind our viewers that we did record today's program, so be on the lookout for a follow-up email from Choice and ACRL with a link to the recording. Also, if you have a few minutes after the presentation to fill out a brief survey, we'd really appreciate it. Your responses help improve our presentations. So thanks again to all of you out there for joining us. We hope you learned something new from the session, and we hope to see you again in the near future on another webinar.